The next two R's, research and reflect. Research and reflect. Research and reflect. The preacher pondered and searched out. Or Psalm 119, I will study your commandments and reflect on your ways. Firstly, research. Research is study with my mind. Research is study with my mind, whilst reflection is listening with my heart. Study with my mind, research. Reflection is listening with my heart. Let's just think about the research bit first. This is the technical part of the sermon prep, and again, we'll just continue talking about this. Exegesis, exposition, expounding, explaining. We're coming to the text, and again, we're looking. We're asking all sorts of questions. What does it say? What does it say? And maybe we're going to be wrestling with the text, in the Old Testament, Jacob and the angel in Genesis 32, that wrestling. Rob Bell, not that I often quote Rob Bell, but he said this, when you wrestle with the text, you walk away limping. I like that, actually. You wrestle with the text, you walk away limping. In other words, you wrestle with God's word, you will never walk away unchanged. And this is hard work sometimes. I think we're starting to see this takes time and energy. So what does it say? Secondly, what does it mean? What does it mean? I think it's important to say the Bible doesn't float in space. Passages from the Bible, you get a balloon with helium in and it just floats. Bible verses don't do that. Bible verses are not unattached to when and where it happened. The Bible is God's word, but actually it's also man's word. In fact, the incarnation is a good model. The Bible is God's word, but at the same time, it's man's word. People wrote it. And they wrote it in different situations, in different contexts. It's not free-floating. And the danger, especially with Jesus, people come to Jesus and they think Jesus is a purveyor of wise words. There's a danger in saying that. Yes, they are wise words, but they're not just free-floating wise words which you might put on a t-shirt or a bumper sticker or a badge. They have a context. They're rooted in a place. When Jesus spoke these words, people were smelling camel dung. Dust was getting in their eyes. It was hot. They were hungry. There's a context. So what does it mean? And sometimes evangelicals can be very much like liberals theologically. A liberal, let's take the Gospels, will look at the text and at the extreme, a liberal will say, well, it doesn't really matter whether Jesus existed or not. That's what they'll say. And there's very little we can really know about Jesus. A liberal will look at the Gospels and say most of this almost certainly wasn't written by Jesus. But that doesn't matter. It's God's word to us. Yeah? So it's just free-floating spiritual information. Now the danger is that evangelicals can do something similar. And we take verses out of context. Yeah? And God's word, this is the unique thing about the God of Israel. He reveals himself in history. He reveals himself in events. Jesus is God's ultimate revelation. God coming, and he lived at a certain time, in a certain place. It's rooted. Can you see what I'm saying? And sometimes evangelicals take verses out of context, and that's a dangerous thing. It becomes a little bit like liberals do as well. And what we fail to realize is that God is a God of history. And his events, his word is rooted in God working in history. And to truly understand this, we need to say, what does it mean? What is the background? What is the context? So the serious study of any text begins with understanding four things. The historical background of the text, the literary style of the text. Again, this is basic stuff, but we never move beyond this. And again, that How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth, I think is pretty good on that one. Although, actually, I think in the Study Bible there is really good stuff about that too. So, this is a volume of all sorts of articles which talk about this. So, what's the historical background of the text? What's the literary style of the text? Is it narrative, history, prophecy, poetry, prose? What's the grammatical structure of the text? So again, we thought a little bit about what do words mean. All translation involves interpretation. So sometimes we what do these words mean? And once you start translating a word from the original, it will start to change. So for instance, you know this, don't you? We have one word, by and large, in English for love. So I might say, I love my wife. I might say, I love my children. I love Jesus. I love ice cream. I love Manchester United. I love coffee. But I think you're going to probably hope that I weight those different loves in different ways. Now we know, of course, that in Greek there are, was it four? 4 different kinds of love. So already, and when this is great. I've done this at weddings before. Actually, of course, it's taken out of context. A very popular wedding passage in our culture is 1 Corinthians 13 on love. Yes. Although actually, of course, the context is Paul is speaking about the use of spiritual gifts. Still, it's used at weddings, sometimes at funerals, but the word love there is not eros, erotic love. It's actually agape. It's so the model is God's love. So immediately, that's great, isn't it? Because everyone's there at a wedding, and everyone's all gushy and romantic, and the couple are at the front, and they've spent so long doing their hair and their nails and their makeup, and that's just the guy. And everyone has soft focused lenses. I'm not into that kind of stuff, actually, but anyway. But actually, the passage is not about the love between two human beings. It's about God's love. So that's quite important to know, isn't it? And if we don't get that, you start to misunderstand what Paul is speaking about. Never mind the fact that actually we're taking it out of context anyway, because it's about spiritual gifts. Anyway, sorry, that was just the theological framework of the text, and I think we've talked about this. This is a big thing. I think the theological framework of the text, and I come from a very reformed, I suppose, Calvinistic background, and would want to say that I want to see what does it say about Jesus? What does it say about the gospel, even if we're in the Old Testament? I think there are also other bigger pictures as well, and that is to understand the gospel and the parables in particular as often God's judgment on Israel too. And we'll think about that this afternoon. So what I'm saying is, you come to something, there are some bigger pictures we need to understand. Don't just take it as an isolated verse or text or story. It's part of something bigger. And if I'm to be faithful, we looked yesterday about being good workmen who know how to correctly handle the word of truth. And we looked at that. The original meant to drive a straight path, a straight road. And if we're to be faithful, we need to know how to do that. And this will take our minds. And you will probably need some help to do that as well. Goes back to the study Bible thing. Rob Bell, we may unusually do find timeless truths present in the Bible, but it is because they were true in real places for real people at real times. That's a really great quote. Timeless truths, yes, there are. But they're only timeless because they were first time-full. So we need to understand the time they were given. Now, in many ways, what we're talking about here, it's like building a house. When we built, I was involved with a big building project, and we built a big centre and extension. It was £1.1 million. I don't know what that is in dollars. It's a lot of dollars.
Close to $2 million.
Close to $2 million.
16 million rand.
Yeah, okay, so it was a lot of money, and I lost years in that project for all sorts of reasons. I love building work. I'm really interested in building work. My father was an architect, and we were really involved with this. I know in the end the contractors, it was a shambles. We stepped in and we effectively ran the project, which was quite good fun. But I know the building very well, and when you build something, it always seems to take a long time to get to the stage of building the foundations. I don't know if you've been involved with construction. And there's always a lot of time. If it's done properly, you spend a lot of time and a lot of energy in the foundations. And it just seems, can't we just get on to the building? But no. But then, after all of that time and all of that effort and colossal amounts of concrete, the foundations disappear from view, don't they? So in the end, you don't turn up onto site and say, wow, that concrete is just amazing. It's a guy thing. That's just fantastic. And aren't those foundations incredible? No, you don't see them. They disappear from view. But if the builders don't build a solid foundation, their building doesn't last long. Now, that's an illustration, isn't it? This is the foundation to the message. When you give it, people won't see that foundation. It disappears. You don't have to. Sometimes preachers do that, but that's a lecture. If you were doing a lecture, you might talk about the foundations. But for a message, you want the foundations to disappear. But if you haven't done that foundational work, the risk is that what you've built is actually not true to God's word. Have I communicated that? You can start to see that we're having some recurring themes here. Okay? And these, I hope that these are recurring themes throughout the whole, I know that Jody agrees, the whole of the BTPS. You will never move beyond this in one sense, that this sort of exegesis, this sort of foundational stuff is going to be critical for every aspect of this course. And so therefore I think you're probably going to have lots of exercises even in future weeks, just getting used to doing this foundational work. Here's a warning, and this is a reflection now, something I've added when I look in my culture. I think we need to be aware of three defining factors within what I would call a postmodern interpretation of the Bible. I don't know if you've done any postmodernism stuff, but to cut a long story short, the culture we have now in the Western world, philosophically, is often described by that phrase, postmodern. I'm not going to go there now, but the biblical text is often interpreted or viewed through three interpretive lenses. No one comes to the text in a neutral way. No one comes to the text in a neutral way. We are all conditioned by our culture, by our worldview again. Everyone. You know, sometimes people say, oh, I just believe in the Bible. It's just the Bible. That's all we need. Well, that's true, but we all come to the Bible with specific lenses. And I've noticed when I look around in our culture, in particular, People come to the Bible with three lenses, and we need to be cautious. Number one is experience. So we start to understand the Bible through my own experience. Because actually, in much of the Western world, my experience is the most important grid. It's how I see it. Secondly, through my emotions, my feelings, all beginning with E. And then thirdly, my environment, or my culture. I wanted to put culture, but it begins with E, so it's better, isn't it? And within the Western world, people will read and understand the Bible through their experience, their emotions, their environment, or their culture. The uniting concept there is it's all about me. It's all about me, and that's a very dangerous thing. And one of the great advantages of doing stuff on worldview is it makes us aware of our particular cultural bias and worldview. We all have blind spots, culturally. If you're in that culture, you don't even think about it. And now in the Western world, people take a number of things for granted. They don't even discuss them. They think they're not up for discussion. But actually, it's a cultural bias. And one of the roles of a preacher sometimes is to get people to see their cultural bias.
We don't know how biased we are until we ask a question.
Yeah. And it's part of this, and it's not just travel, because actually I've met people who travel, but they still view everything through their own cultural lens. So I think it's a questioning, and it's a listening thing. But actually, I think also thinking, as we read, we can become aware of that, and that's a good thing. Okay, what tools do we use for these? Commentaries, Bible handbooks and dictionaries, other people's ideas. We're talking about other people's messages. Richard Foster said, is we're going to see a passage which has often been misread. It is so familiar, but that's been the problem. So we're going to look at a passage, and I'm guilty because I've preached in this way before. What I'm saying is we need to understand more. Again, another quote from Richard Foster: the more we come to the scriptures, internalizing them, discovering the intent of the original authors, wrestling to comprehend the collective unity of the Bible's different parts, the more readily we will be able to see the whole story of redemptive history emerging from the Mosaic-style background of the Bible's contents.
Is it possible to say that even with everything we know, we don't know?
Yeah.
We won't see everything.
No, and that's the humility of coming to the text, so that we always come humbly before the text. Which is why, and this is the miracle of the scriptures, that, I will come to a passage which I know off by heart, but that doesn't mean that God's not going to say something absolutely new to me. So I need to be humble before I come. In fact, frankly, unless I come humbly before God's word, the Holy Spirit is going to have difficulty in teaching me.
Could it also be that as we come humbly, God will also use our own experiences, maybe just going through the Psalms, because it's very much emotional and such, but also with an understanding that the Psalms are both prophetic, emotional description of a certain and specific time within the context, that God, because His word is fresh and new every morning, can use that to speak speak to the depths of us.
And the Psalms in particular, because the Psalms are amazing. The Scriptures are God's word to us, but the Psalms also contain our words to God. Yeah? So and so actually within our words to God expressed in the Psalms, we have the whole range of human emotion and human experience. So much so that sometimes it's hard reading because it's life in the raw. And so we see in the Psalms in particular that incredible, I'll rephrase that, God allowing us to come to him with all our emotions and all our honesty and all our questions. But the danger is that we do understand throughout, but that's not the ultimate interpretive grid, and that's the danger. But the Psalms, I live in the Psalms actually. For the past few years, I've been using the Psalms as my daily devotional, but I pray through the Psalms, and the power of that. In fact, Tim Keller's done a book, hasn't he, on the Psalms? It's a devotional thing, devotional commentary, and I have lived in the Psalms.